Ivor the Engine, the Dragon, by Oliver Posgate and Peter Firmin, read by Grandad. Boop, boop, boopity boop, went Ivor's whistle as they rounded the bend above Lanioch. He wasn't whistling a warning. He wasn't whistling a signal. He was whistling for the joy of being alive and steaming, for the joy of seeing the cows in the fields, the sheep on the hills, and the big wheel of the pit spinning in the sunshine. "See that hill on the left?" said Jones the Steam, Ivor's driver. "That's called Smoke Hill. Some say it was once a volcano." Boop, boop, boop. "What? Smoke? Why, so there is." And there was. Ivor stopped beside Smoke Hill, and Jones ran up the hill. The smoke was coming from under the loose stones on top of the hill. He touched one. It was very hot. Jones fetched the big fire tongs and began to shift the stones. Under the stones he found something amazing. Red hot it was, and big as a rugby football. Very gingerly, Jones lifted it with the tongs and carried it down to Ivor. "What do you reckon that is?" he asked, placing it gently on the footplate. Boop. Ivor didn't know. "No, neither do I," replied Jones. "I reckon we'd better take it up and show it to Mr. Dinwiddie. He's a gold miner. If anybody knows about rocks, he does." So they took the red-hot object up to the gold mine. Mr. Dinwiddie looked at it wisely and prodded it with a bony finger. "Psst! Watch, it's red-hot." "Yes, we know that," said Jones. "What we don't know is what to do with it." "I reckon that thing is red-hot because it's supposed to be red-hot. So you'd better put it back in the red-hot hole where you found it," said Mr. Dinwiddie. Boop, boop, boopity boop. "Oh yes, it's time for Ivor's choir practice. I'll put it in Ivor's firebox. He can take it back later." That thing, whatever it was, in Ivor's firebox was as hot as 100 weight of best coal. Ivor steamed like the wind down to Grumbly Town, where Evans the Song, the choir master, and the Grumbly and District Choral Society were waiting. "Ah, there you are, Ivor," said Mr. Evans in his tuneful voice. "Well now, we're all met. Shall we sing?" Evans the Song lifted his little white stick, and they began their choir practice. Tap, tap. Evans tapped on his music stand. "Just a moment, please." The choir stopped singing, but from somewhere a fine treble voice continued the song. "Somebody is still singing," said Evans. He looked around. It was almost as if the singing came from inside Ivor's boiler. "That thing!" shouted Jones, and he whipped open Ivor's fire door. "What thing?" asked Evans the Song. "It's broken, look," said Jones. On the red-hot coal they saw a heap of pieces, just like the shell of a huge egg. "Do you know Land of My Fathers?" "Eh?" They looked up. There, looking out of Ivor's funnel, was a dragon. Not one of your lumping great fairy tale dragons. It was a small, trim, heraldic Welsh dragon, glowing red and smiling. "Do you know Land of My Fathers?" Evans the Song stopped gaping and remembered his manners. "Why, yes, of course, and very suitable to the occasion, if I may say so. Come, ladies and gentlemen, engines and dragons, Land of My Fathers, if you please." They sang. They sang most beautifully as always, and the dragon's voice was the clearest and most beautiful of all. Their song rang through the streets and the houses and the gasworks and echoed from the hills, golden in the light of the evening sun. Ivor's firebox is really a very comfortable place for a red-hot dragon to roost. Idris, that was the dragon's name, was quite pleased to move in and travel about with Ivor, but Die Station, the station master, did not agree. He fetched the book of regulations and a large cat basket. "Conveyance of livestock," he read. "All livestock to be conveyed in the proper container. So if you please, Mr. Dragon." "You want me to climb into the basket?" asked the dragon anxiously. "I'm afraid I must insist," said Di. The dragon climbed into the basket. It burst into flames. "I was afraid that would happen." "Fire! Fire!" shouted Di. And he ran for the fire bucket. "No, no!" shouted the dragon. "Not water. Water is certain death to dragons." Di did not hear. He threw the bucket of water, but the dragon had shot straight up into the sky like a rocket. "Oh, Di, you could have killed him!" cried Jones. "Where is he now?" With his little wings buzzing, the cooling dragon was circling the town to find a red-hot place. He felt the blast of heat from Eli the baker's oven and dived straight down the chimney. "He's at Eli the baker's," shouted Jones. "Come on, Di, run!" Eli the baker opened his oven door and pulled out a line of hot loaves. He blinked, short-sightedly, at the last one. "That's fancy bread now." "That's not bread, that's our dragon," shouted Jones, bursting in through the door. "Oh, brr, I'm cold," wailed the dragon. Quick as a flash, Eli opened the furnace. "In you get." "Oh, thank you. Oh, that's better," sighed the dragon as he settled on the blazing coal. "There's the trouble, Eli," explained Jones. "Idris is a red-hot dragon. He has to be kept red-hot all the time. And livestock has to be conveyed in the proper container," said Di. "Only what is the proper container for a red-hot dragon?" Eli the baker thought for a moment. Then he smiled, a broad smile. "I might have sold it for scrap or thrown it away. But no, I said to myself, one day somebody will need it." "What are you talking about?" said Jones. "Come and see," said Eli. Under the shed roof at the back of Eli's yard was what is it? "Looks like a tricycle," said Di. "But there's a coke stove on the front." "Chestnuts," shouted Jones. "That's right," said Eli. "I used to sell roast chestnuts, but I gave that up years ago. I thought we could make the fire." "Yes, and your dragon could." "Yeah, of course." "Well, you peddle it along." "Marvellous." And that's what they did. Jones peddled the smoking tricycle through Laniog town. "You selling chestnuts now?" called Mrs. Williams, the post office. "No, just dragons," laughed Jones. "There's enterprising for you," said Mrs. Williams, the post. You might think a red-hot dragon about the place would be a nuisance, but Di and Jones soon got used to looking after him, and he was really no trouble. In fact, he could be useful, like the time when the whole of the choir decided to go to Mrs. Thomas's fish and chip shop. "16 cod chips, please, Mrs. Thomas," said Evans the song. 16, wailed Mrs. Thomas. "The gas burner's playing up. I can't seem to get the fryer hot." So there's only one thing to do. Idris, a bit shy usually, but this was an emergency. Jones told him what had happened, and he left Ivor's firebox and flew down to the shop. "What's this?" cried Mrs. Thomas in alarm. "Just our friend Idris the dragon," said Evans soothingly. "He will oblige us with a few fiery breaths, and then you will have fire and warmth all glowing under your fryer, and we shall have fish and chips." And so it was. Idris sat under the fryer and blew and blew. Soon the fat began to sizzle, and soon the shop was full of the lovely smell of fish and chips and the happy sound of eating. "I say, Jones," said Evans, "listen to what's written in my bit of paper. Dragons at Laniog. Unconfirmed reports have been received that a genuine Welsh dragon has been sighted at Laniog. The Antiquarian Society states that its representative is to make an immediate investigation." "There, Idris, you're going to be famous." "No," cried Idris. "No, dragons are mythical. No, I mustn't be investigated. No, no, no." With a whistle of red-hot wings, Idris was away through the window and gone. "Well, ladies and gentlemen," announced Evans the song, I think we haven't seen any dragons, isn't it? Dragons, said the choir master. What dragons? Lovely fish and chips, Mrs. Thomas. Jones the Steam ran back to Ivor on the siding. He opened the firebox door. Idris was not in there. "Oh, Ivor," shouted Jones. "Idris has flown. The newspaper says he's to be investigated, and he doesn't want to be. Come on, let's see if he's in the ash heap by the shed." Idris was not in the ash heap. He was not in Eli's furnace. He was not in the chestnut barrow. There was no sign of him anywhere. "Oh, I do hope he has found somewhere hot," sighed Jones. "Oh, I do wish we knew where he has got to." And he went home that night, feeling very sad and worried. The next morning, as Jones was talking to Dye Station on the platform, P.C. Gregory rode up on his bike. "Have you seen the dragon?" shouted Jones. "Shh!" hissed the policeman. "There's a lady in the town asking for you. Very posh she is. I think she's the investigation." "Oh dear," muttered Jones. "I'm no good at telling lies. If she asks me, I shall tell her everything." "Ah!" came a well-bred yell from behind him. Jones spun round. There was Mrs. Griffiths of the Antiquarian Society. She was a large lady in a hat. "Ah!" she hooted. "You must be Mr. Jones, the engine driver." "Yes, I must," said Jones reluctantly. "And this is Ivor. Say hello, Ivor, to the lady." Ivor was silent. "Ivor?" said the lady, puzzled. "Which of you gentlemen is Ivor?" "The engine, madam," whispered P.C. Gregory. "Does he always speak to it?" "Oh, yes, madam. We don't take any notice of that," said P.C. Gregory. Mrs. Griffiths gulped and spoke again. "The dragon," she began. "I hear you have sighted a dragon." "Sighted?" cried Jones. "Ivor hatched it from an egg, and he fried fish and chips for us at Mrs. Thomas's. 16 cod and chips." "16?" "That's right. And he sang like an angel, right out of Ivor's funnel. Didn't he, Ivor?" Ivor did not answer. "Oh, come on, Ivor." Ivor remained silent. "I'm very sorry," said Jones. "Ivor isn't usually so rude." "Well, never mind, said Mrs. Griffiths. "I'm sure everything is all right, really." "Everything is not all right," said Jones, beginning to feel angry. "We've lost our dragon." "Oh, well, you know how it is with dragons," said Mrs. Griffiths soothingly. "Here today and gone tomorrow." "Is it indeed?" said Jones. "I can tell you we shall miss him." "We shall all miss him," sighed Mrs. Griffiths. "But you've never met him," shouted Jones. Mrs. Griffiths backed away. This Mr. Jones, who talked to railway engines and said he had a dragon to cook fish and chips, was obviously balmy. "Good morning, everybody," she yelled, and trotted briskly back to her car. "What a very strange lady," said Jones. Dye and P.C. Gregory were falling about with laughter. "You're the one that's strange," laughed P.C. Gregory. "Talking to railway engines, who ever heard of such a thing?" "Well, I reckon that is the end of the investigation," said Dye thankfully. "It's about time you and Ivor did some work. It's Grumbly Gasworks today." Boop, chuff, 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 chuff. Off they went on their day's work. Quite an ordinary day's work it was. Coal for the gasworks, tomatoes and potatoes for Mr. Davis the greengrocer, half a mowing machine for Mr. Pugh at Twin Farm. As they rolled homeward at the end of the day, Jones felt tired and still very worried. If only we knew where he was. Psst! Ivor jammed on his brakes. They were by Smoke Hill. Jones ran up and turned over the hot stones. In the red-hot centre of the hill, he saw a curled-up bundle of scales and claws. Idris was fast asleep. Jones put back the stones and walked quietly down to Ivor. "That's the best place for him, I reckon," he said. "We'll drop in a bag or two of coal now and then if the weather goes cold. Come on, Ivor, time to go home." Boop, chuff, 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 chuff. Jones the steam put Ivor to bed in his shed and went home to tea as if nothing had happened. The end.